Hello everyone, Al from Exiles here, and today we're going to be looking at Infernoids. This is a deck that I love, and it's probably the deck that I've had the most relative success with, but nowadays the only deck profiles you're seeing of Infernoids are deck profiles that only rely, well, they have extravagance in the main deck, and that's a lot of money. And if you want to play a budget, and I'm using that word very operatively, version of Infernoids, then you don't really have much to go on. But I'm going to be giving you guys this deck profile today to just give people another option when it comes to building this deck, and this way you can find something that actually works for you, and hopefully you'll be able to pick up some local or maybe even regional wins with the profile I show you without breaking the bank as much as Infernoids do already. And I said I use the word operatively because Infernoids, as they call themselves, aren't exactly the cheapest. So I'm going to start off with the main deck now. We're playing 3 copies of Decatron. This card is pretty staple. You've got to play this card at 3 because it's your only normal summon of the deck, and it means you can resolve things like Monster Gate and Reasoning even more, successfully. On summon, he dumps any Infernoid to the deck and copies its name and name effect and gains its level. So you always want to be playing 3 copies of Decatron. Now moving on to the level 2, we're playing 2 copies of Antra. This is the one that lets you bounce a face-up card your opponent controls to the hand. This card is really good at dealing with monsters that can't be destroyed, such as things like Dingirsus, things that can protect themselves from destruction, and good against like the Salamangreat Link monsters, can bait them out as well. Then we've got the 2 copies of Harmadic. This card you can bump down to 1 if you want, mainly because it's a destruction effect of monsters, and there's a lot of protection going around, so it's entirely up to personal preference. After this, we're running the 2 Patrulia. This one's really good because it is the spell and trap destruction. It can target any spell or trap on the field and destroy it, which works really well in conjunction with Imagination, because you'll play Imagination, summon out all of your guys, and then if you can summon Patrulia, then because Void Imagination cuts all damage you inflict in half. Once you've summoned all of the monsters out, you can use Patrulia to pop the Imagination, and you'll be dealing full damage again, which is what you want to go for. You want to be able to OTK your opponent with this deck, because I believe firmly that Infernoid is a strong going second deck. The 1 copy of Sajet, you basically running this because of Void Feast and nothing else. It can work, but the choice of your opponent being able to banish a card from that extra deck doesn't really come up much. And again, it's still a name that you can work off of Feast, as well as its own sort of DD Crow tribute effect. Now for the level 7, Double Seatsamas. This card is a staple 2 of, I believe. I don't think you should be playing any less than 2, because once it's battled, during the end phase, you can banish any other card on the field, and I don't believe it targets. Yeah, it doesn't target either, so you can just banish any card on the field, and it can get rid of some really hard to deal with cards. This is a bit of a controversial 2 of, but I am playing 2 Atondel. Now, I'd be swapping this out for something like Pirmaze or maybe the level 5, but I just don't have access to that card at the moment. I used to, but I'm playing double Atondel. Once it destroys a monster by battle, it can attack again, and also all of the Infernoids, apart from Decatron, carry the same sort of DD Crow effect, as well as apart from the big guys, which I'm going to be going into now. So instead of banishing cards from the graveyard, cards like Deviati, the level, I believe this one's the level 9. This one is amazing because on summon, it can destroy all spell or traps on the field, and Anunku does the same for monsters. Deviati can negate a monster effect by attributing any one of your other monsters, and Anunku can negate a spell or trap effect by attributing another monster you control. And as you know, these all work well with Lair of Darkness, but we'll get into that shortly. We're playing 3 Imagination. This card's amazing. If you resolve this and get Tierra out with all of its materials and send your extra deck monsters to the graveyard, you're basically blowing up their field, getting a huge monster on board. And yeah, what else is there to say really? It reduces the level of all level 2 or higher Infernoids back to level 1, which means that the level, if you control the levels of 8 or more, of higher than level 8 on the field, you can't summon. That restriction's taken away, which is really cool. I'd be playing 3 Vanishment, but I only have access to 2 at the moment. I think 2 can work as well. It's also because I'm only running 1 Feast in the main. I'm siding in another 2 copies of Feast in case I'm forced to go first. But again, Void Banishment searches out all of your Void cards, so yeah, you really want to play this at 3 if you do have access to 3 of the card. Now, this card came back on a semi-recent ban list, but it feels so good to have 3 Monster Gate again. If you resolve this card, every single time I resolve Monster Gate at my locals, Decatron is always the first card I hit, and it always really agitates me. But it can happen sometimes. You can hit the Decatron off of the Monster Gate, and it does suck. But most of the time, because you're only playing 3 Decatrons in your deck, you're gonna keep milling, and 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be hitting that Decatron fairly late, meaning you'll have your graveyard set up with Infernoid monsters, and you can just summon them and kill your opponent. The one reasoning, this card can be quite funny if you're going first and they don't know what you're playing. But I think if people are expecting Infernoids in the format, they'll just call one and it's a self-mill. So there's that. 3 Super Poly. This card is absolutely bonkers with Lair of Darkness because it just turns all monsters on the field into dark. And you can just fusion them off regardless. So yeah, crazy. 3 Lair, staple card in the deck. Tribute your opponent's monsters. If they all become dark, you can tribute your opponent's monsters for card effects. The token summoning as well can be put into use if you use the correct link monsters as well. So that's just something to look out for. And now here is my going second choice, and that is Econ. Now, Econ, not only does it work extremely well with Lair of Darkness, because you contribute your opponent's monster to take control of one of their monsters, you can set it going first, have Lair of Darkness on the field, and then interrupt their plays by tributing their monsters and taking control of them in their turn. So you're really, really going to be putting the pain on them if you're playing this card. You can play cards like Mind Control as well, but I personally think if you're running Lair, there's no reason not to be playing Econ. Now, for my alternative to Pot of Extravagance, here is something that a lot of you might have seen released in Rising Rampage. 3 copies of Hypernova Burst. Now, you might be thinking, this card is just a massive minus. What are you going to do with this? Well, yes, I agree. But 9 times out of 10, you're running so many cards in your deck that you just want to see rather than the big guys in your hand opening. Because if you open a big guy and you don't open Lair of Darkness, or you don't open Super Poly or Feast or anything like that, you're not really getting anywhere. And Extravagance 100% is the better choice. You just banish 6 cards from your extra deck to draw 2. It's so much better than this. But at the same time, this card can potentially draw you into the cards you need anyway. And if you've got monsters in your hand that you don't need, or monsters on the field that were summoned from the extra deck you don't need, this card can come in really handy mid to late game, as well as sometimes in the early game as well. If you brick that hard, this card can win you a game. So that's just my opinion. This is only just to make the deck as budget as possible for you guys. If I had Extravagances, I would be playing them. And then 1 copy of Void Feast. If you resolve this going first, hopefully you're winning the game, unless they decide to run over your Decatrons by battle, which might happen. Summoning 3 Infernoids out of the deck that levels equal 8. Up to 3 is really bloody good. Onto the extra deck now. Double Tiara. Yeah, this card's absolutely bonkers. It's got multiple effects that you mill your opponent's deck. You can send cards from your extra deck to the graveyard. If you get its maximum effect, it can result in both players losing their hands. It's crazy. It's just a crazy card, but for that extra deck mill effect, you've got to be running 3 Antes, or Natus, as I think it's rightly pronounced. When it's sent to the graveyard, sorry, if it's entered the graveyard, can't be missing timing now, can we? You can just pop a card on the field. It's crazy. Not only can you destroy your own Void Imagination with it, you can clear your opponent's back row, you can clear your opponent's monsters, and yeah, it's just absolutely bonkers. Super Poly targets Dragostapelia, Madragon, and Starving Venom. Pretty self-explanatory, we all know why we're playing them. Link monsters, Nightmare Package, 1 Cerberus, 1 Phoenix, and 1 Unicorn. This one can also help spin back your opponent's monsters and your own cards if needs be. And this is your generic destruction. You can cut Cerberus if you want to, but it's up to personal preference. We're then playing the 1 Avramax. I've yet to really properly test this, but I have a feeling if you can go into 2 Link 2 monsters, there's no reason why you can't bring this out. 1 Equimax, it's just raw power, isn't it, really? And you can really smash into your opponent if you're playing it. 1 Heater Ablaze, because we need an extra thing to go into if we steal an opponent's monster. And then finally, for the generics, we've got a Dual Little Chimera because they're all fires when Lair is not on the field, and 1 Wee Witch's Apprentice because they're all darks when Lair is on the field. Okay. For the side deck, this is up to complete personal preference, but we'll just go into a few options. Double Ash, 1 Seer, 1 Void Seer. Then we're playing the other 2 Void Feasts if they make us go first. We're playing 2 copies of Artifact Lancia. I mean, it hurts. You have to use this on your opponent's turn because it hurts. It hurts them, but you know you don't want to be using this in your turn because you need all your monsters banished. Double Pankratops, then triple Reboot for them pesky trap decks, and triple. This card should be banned. I'm joking, it's only just come out, but this card is super powerful. Nibiru the Primal Being. Just stop your opponent in their tracks. But anyway, guys, that's been Infernoids. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's probably what I'd call my Halloween-themed deck profile, but it's up to you how spooky you find Infernoids. I personally think the lore and artwork is absolutely phenomenal, and it's been one of those decks that's stayed relevant for a very, very, very long time. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed. Remember to subscribe and like our videos, and that's Big Al out.